In 1976, in a small garage in California, two young dropouts, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, were working on something nobody asked for, but everybody needed. Steve Wozniak was the engineer, a genuine genius who could look at a circuit board the way a musician looks at sheet music. On the other hand, Steve Jobs was visionary. He couldn't do what Wozniak does, but can see something Wozniak don't. At the time, computers were massive, expensive machines that only companies and research labs could access. But Steve Jobs saw that ordinary people would one day want one of these things sitting in their home. To afford the parts, Steve Jobs sold his Volkswagen van and Steve Wozniak sold his HP calculator. With that sacrifice, they built the first 50 units by hand on the garage floor. Then, a local computer shop placed an order for all 50 units, and just like that, Apple became a real business, and they called that product the Apple I. By the time the Apple II launched in 1977, they had real demand, real momentum, and a product that was genuinely better than anything else on the market at that price. Schools and small business owners started buying them. Sales went from $7 million in 1978 to $117 million just 2 years later. In 1980, Apple went public on the stock market. By 1983, Apple was one of the fastest-growing companies in American history. Jobs was on the cover of magazines. The whole world was watching. And Steve Jobs, never a man who thought small, wanted to build something that would change computing forever. He called it the Macintosh. He poured everything into the Macintosh, and on January 24, 1984, he walked on stage and introduced it to the world. To announce it, Apple aired a commercial during the Super Bowl directed by Ridley Scott that ran exactly once on national television and is still talked about today as the greatest advertisement ever made. The Macintosh was groundbreaking, but it had problems. It was underpowered, it was expensive, and sales started to disappoint. The board was losing patience, and Jobs, who was brilliant but notoriously difficult to work with, had already made enemies inside the company he founded. In 1985, Apple's board sided with CEO John Sculley, a man Jobs himself had hired, and stripped Jobs of his responsibilities. A few months later, Steve Jobs walked out of Apple entirely, got fired from the company he created in that garage. And without him, Apple was about to lose its way completely. Through the late 19